I played 4 pixel platformers and I'm going to be ranking them from worst to best. Hello, I'm GalicEnder, and welcome to my best solution for Steam cleaning, Game Bracket. Today we will be looking at 4 titles that represent one of the most beloved retro styles of gaming, running, jumping, ducking, and possibly slashing, in the beloved blocky art style we all know as pixels. Today's challengers are all well-known titles for good reasons, but when matched up against one another, who is considered the best? Well, today we're gonna find out, but before we begin, let's lay down some ground rules. 1. Obviously the game must have a pixel art style. Kinda defeats the purpose otherwise. 2. It must be a 2-dimensional platformer. And 3. My favorite rule, it must be an indie game. Now that the rules have been explained, let's take a climb with everybody's favorite mountain scaler, Madeline, in the indie gym, Celeste. Our story begins on a cold, snowy night, where we see a young girl about to embark on her journey to climb Celeste Mountain. We are then introduced to some beginner platforming sections, and boom! The ice falls, almost crushing us. Celeste has already introduced us to its first mechanic, where ice will fall when approached, already crushing it with teaching the player by playing the game, rather than stopping the flow with text tutorials. The game is confident enough in the player's ability to learn about the environment by showing rather than telling. Moving on, we encounter an old woman. She has lived here for quite some time, and it's this character interaction that sparks the first clues that the path ahead is not an easy one. After warning the old woman about the ice collapsing in her driveway, she reacts with a guffaw, saying that if the driveway almost killed you, then the mountain will surely do us in. It's right here that the game preemptively warns the player, this is going to be difficult, and Madeline reacts like most of us would, spiteful and blissfully ignorant. If an old hag like her can survive out here, then we should be just fine. And in the mind of the player, this is only the first level. Surely it can't be that difficult. I've beaten level 1-1 of Mario Bros blindfolded with my left hand up my ass. This will be a cakewalk for now. So we carry on, ready to face the mountain. Holy shit, the ground is falling out from under us. Who built this bridge? They should be fired. I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die! What? Press X to dash. Oh, neat. And that, folks, is the best excuse of a video game using text to teach a player a vital mechanic. After scaring us with what looked like a mistimed jump, the game uses that sudden stop right before you die to introduce you to Madeline's secret power, a dash jump. And now, the real adventure begins. Sorry for the lengthy segment on the beginning portion of the game, I just thought the design choices of this segment was genius and an outstanding way to pull the player into the game's world and mechanics. Okay, now onto the rest of the analysis. From the start, we already know how Celeste is going to fledge out. We will be introduced to new mechanics via exploration of the game's levels, difficulty is going to be more relevant than we thought, and we know that Madeline can run, jump, climb, wall jump, and dash all in the first 5 minutes. After all that, the game only has one thing to say. You can do this. Yes, it will be hard, but you can do this. Let's start with Celeste's gameplay and level design. It's damn near perfect. Madeline moves at a satisfying speed, the dash feels powerful and quick, the platforming is incredibly precise, and the game's levels fit the mold of Madeline's movement to a T. As you climb higher and higher up the mountain, you'll be introduced to stunning new environments, each with their own unique challenges and settings. The abandoned city has you using the momentum of machine blocks to fling you across gaps. The haunted hotel puts your jump precision to the test as you maneuver around corrupted goop on certain surfaces, or it can just zip around in the air as these goo balls. The mirror cave puts you up against flying demons that constantly hunt you down as you try to solve puzzles. The crystal caverns have feathers that let you fly at high speeds in the form of a wisp, navigating through spiked hallways, jumping gaps to reach the next power-up. This is only scratching the surface of Celeste's level design. The game frequently introduces new obstacles to change up the platforming, keeping things fresh, and adding a satisfying feeling of skill progression. To further express the dopamine rushes, strawberries are littered throughout the levels as optional challenges to further test your abilities. I made it a personal rule to collect every strawberry I encountered, no matter how difficult it was. This explains my death count for all the levels, and by the end of it, this is how many I collected. And I think it was a pretty good amount for my first time after a while. The crazy part is, these strawberries mean nothing. They are simply there as a personal challenge. The game even tells you that the most they'll give you is bragging rights. So yeah, the gameplay is solid, but when I started talking about Celeste, I said near perfect. One of the flaws I found was with the dash ability, specifically diagonal movement. To me, it feels very sensitive, and there were many occurrences where I would go for a diagonal jump, but dash in a straight direction instead, killing my momentum and having me start back at the beginning of a room, which could vary between a couple of jumps or the beginning of a very lengthy segment. It was mostly in quick reaction instances where I had this problem. Some jumps required pinpoint reaction, and in stressful bits where you could die in a split second, it could feel slightly unfair. Other than those minor issues, even if you are not a fan of the game's narrative, the gameplay and challenges that Celeste provides alone is worth the playthrough to both new and veteran platformer fans. Speaking of the narrative, Celeste gets deep. Spoilers ahead. Madeline's whole purpose for climbing Celeste Mountain is to prove to herself that she can conquer a difficult challenge, even if it risks her own life. She doesn't know why she needs to do this, it's just what she believes is right. Throughout her journey, she comes across many colorful characters. There's the old lady who we met in the beginning, Theo, an amateur photographer trying to snap some great pictures for his social media, and Mr. Oshiro, the ghost owner of Celeste Resort. Every character was called by the mountain, whether it was to discover something about themselves or change their lives for the better. Finally, there's Dark Madeline, a personification of Madeline's doubts and fears, brought to life by the mountain's magic. Her goal is to sabotage and manipulate Madeline to stop her journey and go home where she knows she'll be safe. Through personal talks with Theo, we learn that Madeline suffers from depression, a big problem in modern society today. She explains that she experiences frequent panic attacks and has trouble setting her mind to something that will benefit her. She describes the feeling of being trapped in a dark ocean. For the most part, she is okay, but she doesn't know where to go and is often weighed down by the pressures of life. She hopes that reaching the mountain's summit will help her overcome this feeling so she can feel normal again. Later on in the game, we come across the famous feather scene. After a mishap in the gondola, Madeline starts to have a panic attack, and the game's visuals of the creeping darkness surrounding Madeline emulate the feeling of tension and claustrophobia. As she curls up and claims to have trouble breathing, Theo rushes to her side and encourages her to try a trick his grandfather taught him. Close your eyes and imagine a feather. Your breathing controls the feather's height. Focus on your breathing and keep the feather afloat. As you control Madeline's breathing, the darkness recedes and the music begins to fade out. This scene spoke to me, as I used to have a serious problem with waking up in the middle of the night in a panic attack, and I would use an exercise to calm down similar to this one. The way depression is represented in this game is oddly wholesome and scarily accurate. This is a journey of conquering yourself, and the mountain represents all the obstacles you face to heal. By the end, she confronts the dark part of herself and accepts that she is and always will be a part of her. Rather than push her away, she learns to make the best of it and works together with her doppelganger to conquer the climb of Celeste Mountain in one of the best final levels I have ever played. Despite Madeline being the focus of the game's plot, we also learn about the other characters and what drove them here. Theo is a wandering soul, not really knowing where he belongs or what his purpose is in life. Even though he acts like a free spirit, he feels trapped in the fear of the unknown. Oshiro wanted to give Celeste the best hotel the world has ever seen, but when the city fell under and everyone left, they were forced to shut down, and like a pirate captain with his ship, he stayed and eventually died, binding his soul to the abandoned hotel. The old lady is kind of just there to pick on you and then eventually inspire you. There's really not much more to her than that. So even if you don't relate with specifically Madeline's problems, Celeste has an amazing way of delivering other relatable issues in modern life through its characters. And there's just a little bit of something for everybody who's having a struggle these days. Celeste came out of the gate swinging. Let's see how our next fighter fares against this heavy hitter of a starter. Ah yes, this is a title I looked at many years ago. The Messenger is a high-flying, gut-busting, pixelated adventure, and I actually have a dark secret about this game. When I first reviewed it, I never finished the game. I know. Typically when I review games, I make sure to beat it, or if it can't be beaten, play it for at least 6 to 10 hours to try and get a feel for its mechanics and who it's made for. So it's time to right some wrongs and finish what I started, hopefully discovering more positive attributes along the way. Where to begin? Finishing this game after many years of putting it to the side showed me that I have missed so much of what this title had to offer, and the cleverness it displays with its design, swapping genres while keeping to its roots, all while the game unfolds its plot with comedic dialogue and descriptive storytelling. You are a ninja student who longs to leave the dojo to live a life of adventure, but you are bounded by your clan's tradition to stay and train for the prophesized arrival of the Western hero, who will defend the world from its impending doom. Oh look, the impending doom is here, as well as the Western hero, who stops the Demon King in his tracks, forcing him to retreat. He then bestows upon you a magic scroll, and asks you to deliver it to the sages located on the tallest mountain. Dubbed the Messenger, you start your quest to deliver the scroll, and embark on the adventure you'd yearned for so long. Now we can talk gameplay. The Messenger is very humble with its introduction. It slowly shows you the momentum-based platforming by giving you a variety of ninja tools and techniques throughout your journey. Every area you discover is designed around these new abilities while combining elements of the older tools you've obtained to experiment and combine their uses, developing a flow of traversal by zipping across the levels or performing a stylish combo on a group of monsters. And the levels are designed around experimentation of movement, rewarding players with unconventional shortcuts and hidden paths that lead to various treasures. By far your most important technique is the Cloud Step. When you strike a lamp, monster, or projectile in the air, you reclaim your jump, allowing you to gain more height and distance. The Cloud Step can be chained for as long as you keep striking objects. Mastering the Cloud Step combined with the rest of your tools can lead to instances where you are clearing entire segments without even touching the ground, or crossing areas where there is no ground. But what are the tools you carry? You have a wingsuit that lets you glide, a rope dart that can attach to walls, monsters, and floating rings to give you a boost, energy shurikens that damage foes from a distance, and climbing claws, giving you the ability to scale vertical surfaces. Every area you explore is absolutely beautiful with vibrant pixel art, and the way it introduces new ways of platforming either by utilizing your ninja tools or obstacles unique to the environment keeps the game exciting to play through. And then you have the bosses. Not only is every single boss fight a unique experience with fast-paced combat, they also have their own personality and act as reoccurring characters in the game's plot, making them more memorable and hilarious in their own way. Ruxton is a shaman who gives up on the whole evil gig after losing the fight, and decides to help the Messenger by lending him his staff to help him reach the Skylands in the future. The Cyclops brothers, Kolos and Sussus, are two gym bros that love a good workout, but in the end, die while waiting on a power thistle to grow to add to their stew. The dragon you fight in the Skylands ends up being your loyal companion, Manfred. He named himself that because he's always wanted to be a butler. Don't judge him for chasing his dreams. And that is only a few examples. By far, one of the game's greatest strengths is the writing. It's funny, smart, and at some points, very demeaning, especially with Quarble. Quarble is a magical time-bending demon who freezes time right before you kick the bucket, and he has some inspiring phrases to say. One of the first things he says when you meet him is, "I'm the one you never would have met had you any skills." And from then on, every time you die, you get a nice little greeting card from your little buddy. He then sticks around for a bit, swiping your money till he thinks your debt is paid off. Then you have the Order of the Blue Robes, each possessing their own lovable traits, but none as lovable as the Shopkeeper. And I'll show you why with this one scene, which is my favorite interaction in any video game ever. What happened? I warped or something and everything looks different now. Hello? Okay, that is a really cool hat. Seriously, wow. Any idea what happened though? Sorry, I just can't get over the hat. I think it's time to stop for an upgrade. Then we have the Shift. About halfway through the game, after you complete the Trial of the Blue Robes, the Messenger changes identities from a level progression platformer to a full-scale Metroid-Vania. All previous levels become connected through a series of portals and pathways. Time travel also becomes a valuable mechanic, as portals to the past and future are scattered throughout the stages and can help reveal new pathways leading to collectibles or new levels entirely. Every area has two styles, one being an 8-bit for the past and the other 16-bit for the future. These jumps through time could be a simple redesign of the background or a full-blown mood shift, really making the world come to life by showing the impact of 500 years passing in an instant. Portals are also used for platforming challenges, using the drastically changing environments to challenge the player, as something that works in the future may not work the same in the past. And the coolest part about this mechanic is the music. Every track in the Messenger's OST has two versions, one for the past and one for the future. and it changes seamlessly every time you cross a portal. As impressive as this style of gameplay is, it's also the Messenger's greatest weakness. Don't get me wrong, seeing past levels in a completely new style through seamless transitions, changing the way the game looks, is stunning and very well done. It's all the backtracking that kills me. There are times where you will be seeing the same level a lot, and I've also had instances where I was where I needed to be, but I was in the wrong time period, and not every portal you cross has a two-way entry. So I either had to find one later down the road, or travel back to the beginning, making sure I was in the correct time period that lined up with the portals you have to cross, assuring I was chronologically correct when I returned to that one spot. You do have some fast travel portals in the main hub, but not every area is linked. So there will be times where you have to cross an entire level to reach a new one you may have already discovered, but you can only reach it with a certain path. This issue doesn't appear too much when playing, but just enough for it to feel tedious. Another issue I had was with the game's plot near the end. Throughout your adventure, the game never takes its story too seriously, with constant instances of calling out video game stereotypes, characters picking on one another, and taking moments that were meant to be deep, only to immediately dissolve any type of tension to make a joke about plot tropes. Like how the whole messenger selection process is just a huge loop. There are very few instances where the plot expresses deeper meaning than it leads us to believe, and the lack of these moments makes them hard to see as important. The worst instance of this is right at the end when you've finished collecting all the music notes. The shopkeeper admits to holding the reason the Order of the Blue Robes exists, because when you first met him, you said his shop didn't look like a shop. Okay. He then goes on this huge rant on how the Demon King cursed the world and that long ago this couple made a magic music box that would break the cycle and free the world from the chains that has been placed upon it. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but I'm still giggling about the stupid hat bit. Why up until the last minute do you choose to try and be serious with this exposition dump? If you had stuck to just being silly or chose to bring up these plot points earlier, I might have cared a bit more about this deep narrative you tried to set up. Just pick a lane. But in the end, The Messenger is a fun time all around with its incredible fast-paced platforming, complemented with its hilarious writing, memorable characters, and stunning environments that change with time travel. This game truly took a classic and brought it into the modern era. No one prepared me for this one. Our next contestant is Rainworld, and boy, do I have a mixed bag of emotions for this title. But before you assume I'm about to go off on this game, let me put that fear to rest and confirm that I absolutely am. But god damn it, I love this title. Now that we're all good and confused, let me break it down. Rainworld doesn't really say much in the beginning. The only thing it really shows off is its incredible art, which shows us our main character, the Slug Cat, surviving with his family until an unfortunate accident happens and they get separated. Determined to find them, he sets off into the cruel world to reunite with his loved ones. And then it begins. All you have is the ambience of the dying world and sounds you make as you interact with the environment. As you continue, you are taught a couple of basic movement options: how to climb, jump, long jump, and how to pick up objects to either throw or consume them. And there's also crawling through pipes and tight passageways. Then you feel it. Distant roars of a violent storm overtake the silence. The rain is coming. We are then directed to the first hibernation chamber, a small secure bunker strong enough to provide shelter as the storm passes. The bugs and fruit we ate earlier provide us with enough sustenance to survive the wait. As we sleep, we are shown a series of symbols. These are your karma points, and we'll touch on those more in a minute. It's after our long rest that Rainworld stops holding our hand, and we are set loose into this deteriorating yet beautiful world. When I first played this title, I had no idea what anything meant or what I was trying to do. All I had gathered is that I need to eat to survive the storm, and my only way of progression is to find the next hibernation chamber. This was my first 4 hours of the game. I was mindlessly wandering around, dying over and over to the game's enemies and hazards, which by the way are very unforgiving. Everywhere you roam, you are guaranteed to find some new cause of death, whether that's being mauled by lizards, impaled by a giant mosquito, snatched up by giant birds, missing a jump and falling to your death, or attacked by the local natives of the post-apocalypse. The list goes on. You can defend yourself, but it's not a definite solution. While exploring, you will come across debris that can be picked up and thrown. A small sharpened spear that can be thrown to impale enemies. They do not secure the kill most times, but they are good at stunning and slowing down your predators so you can escape. And the movement for the Slug Cat feels very sluggish. Inputs need to be very precise when jumping and grabbing onto a pipe or ledge. Combined with the stress of being chased by multiple predators, makes precision more of a stress factor rather than a tool for survival. And when you do finally make it to the end of an area, you'll learn the hard truth about karma points. They are necessary for progression. Remember when we took shelter for the first time and the symbol changed? Every time you survived the day, meaning you went out, avoided all causes of death while eating enough food to survive the night, and making it back or finding a new hibernation chamber, your karma increases by 1 point. The more you survive, the more points you get till you reach the top. And if you die, the day restarts and you lose that point. Which comes to my biggest pain point, karma grinding. There have been many times where I found myself in a terrible loop of grinding karma to progress, only to lose it either by bad luck, lack of skill, or just plain unfairness. There will be a time where you just die and there's nothing you can do about it. Or some jerk of a lizard just straight up blocks your path and you won't move. And it really just hits you right in the gut. The more you hibernate, the game tracks how many times you've done it, and it spawns in more enemies while also removing past food sources. I get the food sources because at least it encourages exploration and learning the map to make yourself better at avoiding hazards, but it feels counteracted by the increase of enemies every time you move to the next cycle, increasing the chance of you dying without control of the situation, leaving you in a loop of lost karma and lack of progression. So after dying over and over and over again, I caved in and I swapped over to the yellow slug cat, basically easy mode. And this is where I grew to love Rain World. Having been baptized by fire in the first playthrough and starting over with the stakes lowered gave me the time and pacing I needed to absorb what Rain World is and how it functions. The first revelation that struck me was the sounds. The sound design is immaculate, and learning how it functions is essential to your survival. If you decide to play this, I highly recommend you use a headset. Depending on what the music sounds like, tells you what level of enemy and how far away they are, making those unpredictable pipe encounters just a little less likely. And understanding the different colors of enemies and what their abilities are can help you avoid being snatched up. Sometimes. For example, the green lizard is the most basic. He can only travel through pipes and sticks to the ground. Blue ones can walk on walls and have a chameleon tongue that can snatch you up from a distance. And the white ones can turn invisible, with an even longer chameleon tongue. Movement also became clearer to me as discovering new areas faster exposed me to new platforming challenges, forcing me to experiment with the slug cat's controls. You're able to wall jump repetitively, making longer gaps and thin tunnels more accessible. By wiggling the stick in a loop and jumping right after, it allows you to do a backflip, making it more difficult for enemies to grab you. And lastly, there's symbolism. Pipes have 2 symbols, arrows and a set of 3 lines. The arrows keep you in the same area, just up and down depending on which one you enter, but the lines take you to a completely different screen. I even gave multiplayer a try.
Alright, hold on. Dev, what's the... I want to look up the dev command for karma. Ow. You killed me! You asshole! Guess I gotta leap it.
Well, that went well.
Bitch.
A spear.
Don't you fucking
Nice.
do it. Oh, there's a blue lizard! Fuck you! Oh god. It's up to you. Get him.
Hold on.
Get him, little bro. Oh no! I'll save you!
Get his ass kicked. Yay!
Oh
he's
god!
not there.
Hit him again! Hit him again! Hit him again! Damn it! Let's go!
I think he's dead now.
Let's go! 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 Go!
Even when playing on easy, this game is still incredibly difficult, and to be honest, I still haven't finished the game yet, so I have yet to learn the game's full message, but if I wanted to get this video out on time, I had to go ahead and write this portion of the script. This is a game that takes patience and time to master, so even though I am coming to you with an incomplete experience, I did do my due diligence, looked up many analyses, and tried to get as much information as I could on the game to deliver the most accurate interpretation of Rain World I could deliver. And I've also played this for about 12 hours, and I can confidently say that I will be continuing both my playthroughs, and I do recommend this game to anyone looking for a new challenge. Now, let's wrap up this battle with our final contestant. I did a great job picking these last two contestants because they both match the theme of messed up and depressing. Blasphemous is an underrated gem that I've been meaning to play through for a good while now. I was attracted to it during the Great Souls Drought, essentially the time between Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring. Its attention to detail with environmental storytelling, hack and slash combat, and disgusting but cool looking bosses drew me right in. So how is it in execution? Damn near perfect. I was amazed of how deep the gameplay and world drew me in, and how fun it was to make new discoveries in the religious hellhole of Custodia. The plot, however, while incredibly fledged out and weaves perfectly into the world, is very difficult to understand, and it's not that it's too complex, it's just the way the game tells it to you. It's just riddles and words that haven't been spoken since the Crusades, followed along with just vague explanations. It's an artistic choice and I can see how it fits into the setting, but big words make tiny brain hurt. I've since looked up lore videos that more friendly explain it to me, building my appreciation for the plot, but after my first playthrough, this is what I gathered. You play as Pinhead Larry, or the Penitent One, a headgear enthusiast that sets out on a quest to hack, slash, die, and do fetch quests for some of the most grotesque characters I have ever seen, and for some reason, you feel very guilty. You never say why, it's just what everyone keeps shoving down my throat, so it must be true. The big door to the big castle won't open, so I have to kill 3 holy visages to get inside. Once that's done, I learned the reason why the world sucks is some guy felt bad for stealing his sister's dolly, so he begged to be punished, turned into a tree, leaked some shiny looking slime, and some asshole made a religion out of it, abused the power of his position, and now we have to make things right. Obviously there's more to it than that, but that's all I was able to pick up during my first playthrough. As for the gameplay, I was very impressed on the way the devs put everything together. Let's start with the most important aspect to any Souls-like adventure, the combat. I'm happy to say the combat fits the bill of easy to learn and difficult to master, which is all I could ever ask for. You are, however, bound to your sword, the Mea Culpa. It's a weapon you will start and finish your pilgrimage with, and this is primarily for plot reasons, as the sword is an incarnation of pure guilt, and wielding it is the purest form of blasphemy. Ahem. Despite being limited to one weapon, the Mea Culpa is very customizable, with certain items that rebalance the weapon and upgrade shrines that increase the sword's damage and adds new moves. Other moves that can be utilized are the parry and combat slide. The parry works similarly to other titles, as press the button at the right time and you not only deflect the move, but deliver a powerful counterattack. And the slide can function as a dodge, cross up for your enemies, or duck under low walls to reveal hidden rooms. Which is the perfect segue to start talking about exploration. The world and how you traverse it is one of Blasphemous' finest achievements. Every area you explore just explodes with personality. No two areas look the same, but are connected in ways where the transition would make sense. Each level has unique enemies and platforming gimmicks that further express their individuality and keep the exploration process enticing enough to keep going. The sewers are infested with infected creatures, leaking poisonous fluids, and they writhe around in the waste. The Badlands have barbarians wearing bull skulls. They walk on all fours and are tricky to hit when they roll away and throw spears at you. The Library of Forbidden Words is haunted with ghosts that wander the halls, filling themselves with controversial knowledge. And that's only a few examples of Blasphemous' dark yet beautiful world. The map is very user-friendly, as every area is color-coded and bordered well enough for you to see where you haven't been. Shortcuts are everywhere in the form of secret passages, elevators, or portals linked to many areas across the map, making backtracking very strategic and not as annoying as other Metroid-Vanias. You are even given a set of custom markers to help you find specific areas and thematically label them, like this large hairball who hates their beloved. I don't know what happened, but if it led to this, I think I'd be pretty pissed off too. Characters that help the Penitent One upgrade his gear are hidden in the depths of the world. Some upgrade your bile flasks, another one increases the amount of charms you can put on your friendship bracelet, and this one loves bones.
The bones that bring the bone.
They all have one thing in common. They are gross, and I can't understand a single sentence they say. And the bosses are even worse, as they also try your patience. But they are memorable for reasons I wish they were not, and contain patterns unique to their fight and match their personality. Newsflash, they are difficult, and you will die very often, but it is really fun. Death is an art form in Soulsborne titles, and Blasphemous is no different. But the way death punishes you is an interesting one. Typically when you die in a Soulsborne game, you lose all your currency and have to find it again without dying, or you'll lose it forever. In Blasphemous, you have 2 bars, one for health and one for magic. And magic is broken in this game, as spells do big damage and can be swapped out mid-combat, even in a boss fight. So when you die, rather than take your money, it takes away your best tool, and you have to go back and recollect your shame. And if you die again trying to reclaim your lost magic, you lose even more, and now have to make 2 stops on your skill issue journey. Or you could just pay the gods to give it back. Your choice. Blasphemous is a fine adventure filled with many challenges and beautiful areas to explore. The movement is very clean and fits well with its hack and slash combat. Enemies and bosses have their own attack patterns and can vary depending on where you are. The only thing that bothers me is the way the game explains the plot. If you're not a professor in Latin, you will have a hard time figuring out where to go, what to do, or find out how to complete side quests. If the map wasn't as good as it was, I would have been screwed, but thankfully I was able to finish my pilgrimage and die in a pile of ashes. Maybe next time I'll shoot for the good ending. Now that we have all the attributes of our 4 contestants, I've come to realize this is almost a video on Metroid-Vanias. They all still count as pixel platformers, I just did not realize how many of them shared this attribute, with the messenger being a hybrid and Celeste being the truest of form. It's just an interesting realization. This doesn't discredit the games, I just thought it was... What the hell are you? What am I looking at? Garlic! This was a game I found on complete accident, during a night of joking with friends and bringing up how most people when they see my username say GalicEnder instead of GalicEnder. In your guys' defense, I can see how the eyes can mistake the name, but... Long story short, I jokingly typed in garlic into Steam and found this. And the craziest part is, it's actually pretty good. Garlic is a game where you play as a sentient piece of produce that has one mission: climb the tower and get to the goddess. During this quest, you will be bouncing from wall to wall, walk down the sidewalk kicking cans because you think you look cool, jump over bottomless pits while dodging goat demons, fly through the air on the back of a squid with a mounted Gatling gun, use instant transmission to avoid being caught as a peeping Tom, fight whatever the hell this is, take a break to play Street Fighter with some random guy, and platform through high-energy, rage-inducing stages that made me scream every profanity in the book, all to get to the goddess at the top of the tower because god damn! As ridiculous as this sounds, it's all true and hardly the full experience. Garlic was just some crazy trip of a game that the devs had way too much fun designing, with all of its references, bizarre design choices, and gameplay loop of running, jumping, and super bouncing around like a racquetball. The main game consists of 12 worlds with 10 levels each. Our hero Garlic has to get through every single one of them while passing some other trials to reach the top. The main gimmick is Garlic's Super Bounce, which allows him to rocket between surfaces and pull off some crazy looking platforming. Should he get hit, he'll turn purple and will be unable to use this ability for a couple of seconds. If he gets hit again during this phase, he'll die. In some instances, the environment itself will affect Garlic in many expressive ways, like being set on fire, squashed into paste, losing a leg to a saw blade, or just getting something yucky on your head. Garlic is very emotive, making the most of any interaction, whether it be dying or just being silly. And let me say, this game feels amazing to play. The movement feels crazy precise, Garlic moves at a great speed, and the levels are designed around his super bounce, encouraging experimentation to try risky maneuvers. But if you don't want to bounce around like a maniac, the game feels just as good to play without it, making the initial bounce technique good for a super jump or air dash, making it very accessible to new and veteran platformer fans. The levels are short and sweet and can offer a decent challenge and constantly change up their environments with hazards to keep the experience fresh and allow for more bounce experimentation. In between worlds, you have silly minigames that tell wacky stories of Garlic trying to impress the goddess by looking cool, trying to give her a gift, and maybe get a little raunchy by spying on her in the locker room. This game is very Japanese humor. If you've ever seen Pop Team Epic, this game's humor is just like that. Random, eccentric, and very in your face. Garlic is just the classic Game Boy game that never came to be. My only complaint is at the very end, the game gets stupid hard. I'm not even kidding. The last 4 worlds took me about 6 hours to get through due to insane precision, overwhelming amounts of enemies, and timing challenges that kept me at a standstill for hours. This was like playing a Kaizo level in Mario Maker 2, but I beat it. And I can't deny, the challenge was fun, but my god was it painful. Garlic was a happy accident that made me go insane. I laughed, I screamed, and repeatedly said, "What in the absolute f*** in many forms of context." This game takes the title of Mystery Fighter to a new level, because, well, just look at this. How do you process this? With the battle reaching its end, we now have to come to a decision to find out who will come out on top. But before we begin the ranking, I want to say every title on this list accomplished incredible feats of style and pushed the boundaries of what could be considered a pixel platformer. I can confidently recommend every title reviewed today, and am honored to have yet another amazing lineup of games for episode 3. But unfortunately, the show calls for a winner, which means there must also be a loser. So if you believe one title should exceed the other, then that's okay. I'm glad you have such a high opinion for these amazing games, because they deserve it. But I'm also adding in another reward, the Community Award. The game who receives the most votes on the community polls on YouTube and Twitter will also be acknowledged as the best in the GalicEnder community, because it's fun to compare our opinions and express more appreciation towards good video games. So subscribe, so you can be sure to participate in the next episode. Now, let's get into it. Man, this one kinda stings a bit. The first time I reviewed this title, I talked about how it was one of my favorite games of all time and hyped it up beyond belief. And while I still adore this game, looking back at it with more reviewing experience and comparing it to other amazing games, while also fully finishing the game, showed me a couple cracks in the magic. Let me get one thing clear. The Messenger is a fantastic game with amazing qualities. The time travel mechanic is clever with its seamless transition of pixel count and music, with hilarious dialogue and pristine platforming as well. The only things holding it back is the occasional slog of backtracking with making sure you are in the right time period to access certain paths, and its plot. The plot isn't bad, it just needs to pick a lane on whether to take itself seriously or not. The game's story frequently shifts from a comedy piece to a shoehorned in dark plot mentioning characters and events that we have never heard about before that apparently hold great significance to the history of the game's world. Having these plot points introduced this late into the game makes them hard to take seriously, especially when I'm still giggling about past jokes. In the grand scheme of the game itself, this complaint can be taken as minor due to the previous laughs I had along the way, complemented with amazing gameplay and environments that I experienced. But when compared to other titles that had more consistency in their plots and or silliness, The Messenger tragically falls short on that aspect. Still an amazing game, and I highly recommend you give it a try. Alright, before you start saying I put this title low because I didn't finish it, let me tell you that that is not the case. During the production of this video, I looked up many playthroughs and analyses to make sure I could deliver the best interpretation of the game that I could. Rain World is one of the most artistically expressive, innovative games I have ever played and watched, and I couldn't praise it enough for its world, story, and challenges it presents to the player. The only reason that it's this low on the ranking is something that I believe we can all agree on. It's sometimes this game is absolute horseshit. The instances that you just can't control, like walking in on a lizard you couldn't see on the other side of a pipe, randomly getting snatched up by a bird, or literally anything else, is just unfair and so unbelievably frustrating that I can't overlook it. I hate to make this comparison, but let's look at Dark Souls, another game famously known for its difficulty. When you traverse through Dark Souls, you learn what you are up against and nothing will change about the areas you explore. Yes, it's difficult, but it remains consistent, giving the player time to understand the enemies and layout to understand the game and how to adapt. Rain World is anything but consistent. The more you play, the harder it gets, and enemies only increase in rank and numbers the more you hibernate, and their positions are rarely consistent. There are many times where I just had to pray that I wouldn't get soft-locked by a lizard in a pipe, and I get that these difficulties play into the world and the message of Rain World's plot, but from a design aspect, it's just unfair. And I know after that big rant about Rain World makes it sound like I hate the game, but I don't. I love this game, and I'm still playing it to this day trying to beat it. I love the challenge, the movement of the slug cat, and the depressing yet beautiful designs in each area. The way this game warns you with its sounds and the high intensity of running from a pack of colorful lizards is just exhilarating and delivers a kind of tension I've been craving for a while. I just can't deny its flaws, and it's why the game is placed where it is. But still, if you are looking for a gruesome challenge, give Rain World a shot. Our mystery fighter Garlic is taking home the bronze. Garlic is by far one of the wackiest games I have ever experienced, really pushing my platforming skills to the test. No, really, the endgame of Garlic makes Celeste difficulty curve look like a Kirby game, and the controls are tight, the super bounce mechanic is fun to master, and the little comedic minigames and random arcade machines are a great tension breaker from the monstrous difficulty. Garlic is just a good time. Nothing more, nothing less. As our fighters diminish one by one, we see two remaining warriors on the field. The grim artistic knight Blasphemous, and the motivational underdog Celeste. Both titles exceeded my expectations of the pixel platformer genre with their approach to storytelling, innovative styles of gameplay, and level design that beautifully weave challenge and style together. But there can be only one that can take home the gold, and that game is Celeste. Blasphemous put up one hell of a fight with its Souls-like combat, engaging boss fights, and incredible UI, with a beautifully designed world and plot that goes insanely deep for what it is. But Celeste is just pure genius with everything it has to offer. My greatest appreciation is the level design beautifully combining the settings of each area as a tangible force for Madeline to interact with. Every platforming challenge is part of the area you are exploring. Just to name a few examples, the Haunted Hotel is covered with the negative expulsions of Mr. Oshiro and massive amounts of clutter from books, towels, and other hotel accessories. The Crystal Caves have you avoid deadly yet beautiful amethyst spikes, and the gale force winds you fight against when you are near the summit of the mountain make platforming tense as you hop over bottomless pits. The plot is also commendable for how it addresses the sensitive topic of depression and what it can do to a person. Madeline's journey is essentially one big metaphor of facing the challenges of self-doubt, and how one can conquer it despite falling down after you've gone so far. And if depression is not necessarily your issue, the other characters you interact with also share relatable problems and how the mountain helps them process. Don't get me wrong, the plot of Blasphemous is as poetic as an Edgar Allan Poe piece, but goddamn, without any research, it's difficult to grasp on your first playthrough. It's just a lot to take in at times, and can feel overwhelming or difficult to attach to when I couldn't understand for the life of me what the hell was going on. Celeste knows what it is, and delivers a story that's simple as it is deep, and is more than deserving of taking first place for episode 3. However, for the Community Award, it goes to Rain World. It surprises me that you guys love the challenge of this game so much, and I can completely see why you guys in the GalicEnder community rate it so highly. Thank you all so much for watching the 3rd episode of Game Bracket. Congratulations to Celeste for taking home the gold, and congratulations to Rain World for winning the first Community Award. These two games truly gave it their all and are more than deserving of coming out on top in both aspects of the voting and reviewing process. Stick around to learn the next episode's theme. I'm GalicEnder, and I'll see you next time.